Hi everyone, there is one more week to go to this online workshop and actually to my school year as well, so I have many things that I have to complete before the end of that school year. But for now, I just want to congratulate you once again because you are doing very good work. The aim of the Category 1 workshop is to delve into the philosophy of the IB and to see the links between the different parts, and planning a unit actually has a focus of making sure that we are implementing what is expected from us by reflecting upon it before we teach or as we teach, and then we can improve it from year to year. So the unit plan is evolving from year to year. So for now, we'll have like the core of the unit, which will be planned at the end of this workshop, and then we will be able to add some details. So you'll see that we will not, well, it will not be asked for you to complete it thoroughly, but you will have built this, well, set up actually everything that you need in order for that unit to be meaningful for the students, because it is a student-centered program. And that's why we went through different parts, trying to make sure that what we are doing is not is always based on things that we want the students to learn and to be able to transfer in other subjects and in future years, and also try to do authentic activities and tasks in order for the students to get involved, to act, reaching the IB mission statement where we want the students to get involved. But first we have to sensitize them or to encourage them to act or do things, and that can be done as well through our classes. Also, you'll see that we'll come back to it also, that we have a strong focus on the approaches to teaching and to try to teach strategies and skills that we want the students to develop. So that was what we've done so far. So you'll see in Module 4, the first learning engagement activity. There's no post needed. It's just a little story. Try to think about it using the research cycle, just to see that perhaps one of the objectives here that you might want to remember is that I have seen when I was doing visits, evaluation visits to IB schools, sometimes there is a really nice context, there's something really meaningful which is planned for the students, and then when we get in class and we observe what's happening, we realize that the teacher is so eager to tell the students what is planned that the teacher doesn't take the time to let the students think and get involved in the inquiry cycle. So it's one thing to plan good questions, it's another to take some time and let the students recall their prior knowledge by themselves and try to do things. Of course, we will differentiate and perhaps give cues to students who have difficulties. So this seems really natural, but sometimes we want to go so fast that we just skip the inquiry part of our lesson. So we have to think about it, and we have to find time, of course, to do that. And the other thing is that we will try not to take too much time in some other areas, and perhaps once we've done an activity which was based on inquiry, we might want to structure the knowledge really clearly, but then instead of perhaps giving like every possibilities to the students and to tell the students like, if this happened, this is what you should do, then we just give problems of increasing difficulty levels so that the students can learn by themselves, and each time they are confronted to an unfamiliar situation, then they are practicing their skills and their ability to transfer their knowledge in new situations. But once again, for perhaps a few students in our classes, we might be there right behind, or perhaps there is a friend, there's somebody else in the class which will help the students who might struggle a little bit more with these problems, and that sometimes not reaching the same answer allows the students to communicate and to work in collaboration, which is one of the 6 approaches to teaching as well. So everything is connected, and that's what I would like actually you to remember after this workshop. So once again, there are the module notes, and then the learning engagement. Well, the Amazon Fly, just to tell you the answer, I didn't find it in the module notes, so I just gave it in my post, but it's the answer actually. The second learning engagement activity is really important, and this is something which is often weak when the schools send unit plans to the IB for them to be evaluated. It's to build questions, and there are 3 types of questions: factual questions, conceptual questions, and debatable questions that we have to plan. For now, in category 1, we will focus only in the inquiry section. What you might see, and I might tell it a little bit later, is that normally we use these questions and we might add mathematics in the action section of the unit plan. But for now, we do not put any specific topic within the questions. We just keep them broad enough in order for other teachers to be able to use the exact same questions perhaps in their classes. So these questions are all based focused on 3 things. Well, it's actually on one thing, the statement of inquiry, but that means on the concepts and also on the global context explorations. Every concept and the global context exploration should be seen within one question, at least one question. So now we are asking 3 questions, but of course we might combine all of them within one question. Often the the statement of inquiry can lead to a conceptual question, and that's what you might see as well. So I'll go do an example of that, and it's not because it's a factual debatable question that we cannot focus on a concept. For instance, if I ask what are the forms of representation, I have 2 concepts, and it is a factual question because this is something that can be answered directly. So, and then you can look at the other participants' questions. So here I just went back to a unit plan. I don't know if I had done it or not. This is one example that I've done for the online workshops. So here, if I would use the concepts relationships, quantity, and representation, and the global context of creation, consumption, and human impact on the environment, what you can see is that I can ask factual questions like, what is a relationship? I am in the inquiry, here, the inquiry section of the unit plan. Perhaps later, and I'll go directly below, as you can see here, that question can be presented to the students with the mathematics. So I could, if I would have the content exponential function, I could use a question, what is an exponential relationship? So you see that the inquiry questions that you are building in the inquiry section should be used in the action section, and this is what will allow me to make sure that I am studying the concepts and the global concept exploration with my students. And then we would have an activity. And you see here, it's teaching and learning through inquiry. So we will start to build something here, okay, in Module 4. So here, the activity, what can you do? So often it starts with a question. It involves prior knowledge. We let the students think. We let the students collaborate, perhaps. And of course, its focus, it includes the concepts and the global context exploration, because I'm planning things, some skills that I want them to develop based on the statement of inquiry. So here was one example. I'm going back up. Here I have a factual question about my global context exploration. So I can ask, what are the impacts of consumption on the environment? And I've used my 2 global context explorations within it. For conceptual questions, we can see here, for instance, how can we represent a relation between or a relationship between quantities? Once again, you see I have put 3 concepts within my question. Why? It's often how and why for the conceptual question. Why is it useful to represent relationship between quantities to show the human impact of the impact of consumption in the environment? And I also have to have at least one debatable question. Here I have put, is it always possible to represent the impacts of consumption on the environment by a relationship? Perhaps we cannot, or it's hard to do because it's like scattered all around. So this is something that we can study. So this is for the activity, learning engagement activity 2. I'm going back here already. Then for the third one, we will go back to the unit plan that we have done. In the learning engagement 2, just copy paste the questions, please, in the forum as a reply. Here, we ask you to build 3 learning experiences. So it will not be completed, like the unit plan will not be as detailed as it can be later on, but for now, just try to think about 3 things. And within it, of course, we will think about formative assessment and differentiation strategies, but this is like here. So we will be in that part of the unit plan. So we are planning, as I've done here, you just have to add a row underneath or over it. When you add a row, then you can have like 3 lines. Each line would be 1 activity. So it's easy, and you will have the formative assessment and the differentiation. So that is what is asked. We ask you to choose one of the approaches to learning skills. So you had to put 1. So what it means here is that within the learning process, you will do 2 things. You will present your unit, use your concepts and global context explorations, but you will also do at least 1, but actually 2 activities within which you will teach the students explicitly how to use the approaches to learning skills. So I had here the intention here, remember the approaches to learning, for the students to be able to organize information using a logical structure. I will teach them actually how to organize and depict information logically. So an explicit learning activity can be perhaps, and I will write it here, it can be perhaps that I use a story. It doesn't have, with the explicit activity, it doesn't have to be related to mathematics. So I can just take a story, cut it, like print it, cut it in many different parts, or and then ask the students to try to like reassemble the story. So that would be an explicit activity, and then you'd see that sometimes like things must go first and then things should go later on in order for the story to be logic. So we have to do the same thing when we are giving our lines of reasoning. So part 2 soon.